the Alliance of Independent Agencies. I'm just going to set out why we're doing this. COVID has thrown up a number of challenges, but a number of opportunities. And what we've seen in our growing membership is more and more members saying, we want to know more about the other members within the Alliance, and we want to talk about collaboration. And since collaboration is one of the core values of the Alliance, we said, absolutely, we should be doing that. We partner with anybody and everybody who we believe will add value to the independent agency community. And even members of the independent agency community want to collaborate with each other. So the first thought was therefore, well, why don't we just get the members to do a show and tell? Well, that could be rather dull. So I asked one of our co-chairs, Laurence, to say, look, which of the agencies would you most like to collaborate with? And he's selected Croud and Luke Smith. Delighted to have Luke, who's CEO of the Croud, with us. And therefore the idea is that each of the members, we will run it as a chain. So Laurence will interview Luke today, and then the next interview will be Luke interviewing an agency that he will announce at the end of all this. So stay tuned, who he wants to interview in the next round, and then that agency will then select another agency within the membership, and therefore we will be sitting in as the audience in a meeting between two CEOs, understanding how, learning about both their businesses and how maybe they might want to work together. So that's why we're doing this. This is a way of learning about each other, but in maybe a more interesting way. So I'm going to hand over to Laurence, talk about maybe why he's picked Croud and Luke, and then let's listen in on the conversation. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tommy, and thank you everyone for joining us. Bear with us. This is obviously, as Clive said, the first of these. I'm hoping it's going to be interesting for you guys to eavesdrop into the conversation that Luke and I have. I was saying to Luke just before this, I very much have an agenda to use this to find out as much as I can about Croud and Luke, because in all honesty, I've been a bit of a fanboy of Croud and Luke for a while. I'm really interested in a number of things they've done that feel really on the money. It's kind of interesting to see that Robin Bon is here, kind of really clarifying the importance of being differentiating and doing things differently. So the Croud network, I'm really interested to find out about, and Crowd Control, kind of doing a bit of looking on the website of that, and I'm sure we'll come to that in a bit. But it's also a really good moment for us to have this conversation, and for Luke to take us through the topics that we're going to be covering, because Croud are celebrating their 10-year anniversary in is it the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, Luke?
I argued with my co-founder about this. He had a shorter notice period than me. So he started in February and I started in April. So whenever he says, well, Croud's 10 years old now, I said, no. It didn't start when I sat down next to him I remember it because it was actually, it was 2 days after my birthday. So I started this business, with a sort of 2-day hangover on a Monday, sort of walking into somebody else's office where we were borrowing some desks, feeling dreadful, thinking, what am I actually supposed to do here? It's really etched in my memory that day. And I said to somebody, it's 10 years. And they said, that must feel really weird. And I'm like, no, it feels about exactly right. It feels like I've been doing this a very long time. I've got all the battle scars. I remember every moment of it. And it feels like about 10 years that we've been going. But yeah, it is 10 years. It's kind of annoying because we can't all get together and have a huge party next week. But we've got, I spoke to sort of head of events, and she said, right, we're gonna put something into September, and we're gonna have a series of events throughout the year. So fingers crossed, if COVID does stay at bay for the summer, we should be able to celebrate together.
Good stuff. And just to give everyone a sense of kind of the topics we're going to be covering. So given that this is sort of an opportunity for me to see whether, see how we could work together in the future and find out a bit more about the agency, what we're covering in terms of topics. Firstly, kind of understanding the agency. So we're going to come back to your origin story that you started telling there, and kind of because I'm always fascinated about the reasons why agencies started and kind of and what the original thinking was behind kind of the start. But then go into kind of what you were like as an agency now, kind of values, vision, etc., core competency and point of difference being a key bit. And then lastly, we're going to end on the future, because obviously we've all, as agency leaders, always have an eye to the future and where we're going. And I think that's kind of one of the things that gets us out of bed in the morning, kind of where we might take things in the future. So it'd be a good place to end there. So let's go back to kind of understanding your agency. Tell us, what is the origin story? Why did you set up the agency, and what was your initial vision? It'd be really interesting to see how it's changed.
I guess one quick question. I mean, can I answer? I can ask probably some of these back to you as well.
Yeah, go on.
We're not precluded from solely talking.
No.
It's slightly embarrassing when all you do is talk about yourself, but we'll see how we roll with it. But no, we talked about April 2011, so about a year. But I worked at Google for the 4 years prior to doing this, and it's quite interesting. I'd worked in effectively media sales all of my career, so I'd never worked in an agency. So I always say for the first couple of years, I think I was a bit hopeless, because most people in me, your role as a salesperson in a media organization, it isn't very. I wouldn't describe it as hard work. You can sort of dress it up as hard work, but it's not agency hard work. It's not client deliverables. It's not, juggling multiple, accounts and all that sort of stuff. So I think I learned a lot in those first couple of years of what hard work really felt like. But the key, key thing about the kind of Google experience was I repped all the big agency groups and some of the smaller independents like Searchworks, and every one of them said, we can't make any money out of this search thing. It's just so unwieldy. It's so big. It requires so much labor intensivity that I remember a guy called Gary Reed, who ended up working at Forward 3D and is a good friend of mine. He was working at Cara on the Vodafone account. He said, it's £4 million a year in fees, but we can't make any money out of it. And they had to have a team of 12. Right. And I thought, hang on, this model is broken, right? This traditional agency model just it's not fit for purpose for this digital world. So what if you built a model? And Google Ventures were backing lots of things that were innovative and different. That's their sort of VC arm. And one of them was like a crowdsourced business. And I said, hang on, like the idea of crowdsourcing. This was a marketplace which we didn't like. So marketplaces are just buy side, supply side, but no QA or management in the middle. But perhaps if you stole that idea, applied some crowdsourced back end, built technology. I felt like agencies totally underinvested in technology, and then combine that with a brilliant in-house team who feel part of are on a mission with us, make everybody shareholders. You can build a kind of unique agency model that can. We only realised this later, but they do far more than competitors and do what make money on a Vodafone at £4 million. And then what we learned later was we could do that globally, right? So if you built a remote workforce that worked for you through a piece of technology, and we break all the tasks into little chunks of time and types of work, you can then scale that. And we're now operating in 120 markets. So that was the sort of premise of it. And we never wanted to be just another digital agency. We wanted to be something slightly different.
And what's your, in terms of the kind of size and shape now, you've got over 2,000 Crowdies, haven't you, around the world?
Yeah, we're 200, so we have we use Google Chat as our sort of in-house sort of Slack channel. And we have an announcements channel, and you can't actually get any announcements on there because there's so many new starters joining at the moment. So having had a sort of quiet year last year, we've actually added, we're adding 30 people or so at the moment. So we're about 225 at the moment in-house. And we're going to be about 255 by end of May, early June. So that's in-house team. That's majority of those people are in the UK, probably 150, and then 50 in the US, and then about 20 in Sydney. I always get those numbers slightly wrong, but that's the rough. And then the Crowdy network is that, I mean, yeah, it was 2,400, and then I found out the other day it's now 3,800. So
wow.
That's gone up significantly. And actually, the important part of that is actually, because we used to talk about, it was only about 300 or so were active in any given month, but that's gone up to 700. So we have 700 individual people outside our in-house teams doing these jobs across all these different disciplines, and some are doing an hour a month because there might be a real specialist skill that we need. And some are doing, the max we can do is about 27 to 30 hours, depending on the market, because of employment restrictions. And, our Crowdies are very much Crowdies, and they are freelancers. They're not, this isn't a pseudo in-house role. And actually, we try and convince our Crowdies to become, our open hires are very much shared with our Crowdies. We have a bigger problem. We can't actually get many Crowdies to become in-house staff, but in-house staff keep going off and becoming Crowdies.
Yeah. And what actually is it's a good point in terms of finding the Crowdies in the network. Do you have to actively go and find them, or do they find themselves? They come to you, or does it vary on the role?
I think if you're a digital freelancer in certainly Europe or the US, in the sort of disciplines we work on, you'll probably have heard of Croud, just by osmosis. I don't think we're very super active in the sort of outreach for Crowdies, and people just generally come to us, and we usually have more supply than demand. There are, if we need a specialist skill or a language skill or a platform skill in a particular market, that's when our sort of Crowdy network team of 5 or 6 people within our business who are, their sole lives are dedicated to the feeding, the watering, the finding, the managing of our Crowdy network within the business.
Got you. And so moving on to, I guess, so it's really interesting, by the way, to hear it takes an outsider to change a paradigm in the category, right? It's like the very fact that you didn't come from an agency background, but were close to agencies, you knew enough about them, but actually had no axe to grind in terms of or vested interest.
Yeah, and I think some of it was naivety, right? Because I didn't know it, I didn't get it. I just took three data points. One was, crowdsourcing looks like it might be a thing. Then a data point, which is nobody can make any money out of search, and it's just this really labor-intensive thing, ironically. And then my sort of desire and burning desire that I didn't want to work for a big corporate all my life. And those 3 things came together. And I'd had all these 2 or 3 ideas before launching an agency, and they were nothing like agencies. They were random, much more sort of blaggy business ideas.
And I mean, the crowdsourcing thing, obviously, kind of when you were launching, there was an awful lot of buzz around it at the time. Were there's only a handful, I guess, of kind of true crowdsourcing in the way that you've got kind of that continue today? I mean, there are any that you kind of that you had in your mind or that you kept in touch with over the years that kind of also work? So
yeah, I mean, so in actual fact, crowdsourcing back then was quite rare, and that's why it stuck out when Google Ventures backed this thing called Trada, which I didn't take. You should never take pleasure in anybody's fall, but it was quite interesting that over 2 years later, Trada went bust because it was a marketplace, and they didn't crack the concept of quality control. But interestingly, back then it was the hardest thing in the world to sell. Because while all agencies use freelancers, we were very declared about it, and we said, look, 40% of our work is done by our freelance community of Crowdies. And so many clients back then, probably 70% of clients said, nah, not for us. Data is, lost. Where does our data? And it's, no, it all takes place outside of the platforms. We have a rigorous system of QA. We have our security, even back then, was very, very tight. It's even tighter now. I mean, we're completely buttoned up on that stuff. But clients didn't like it. And for the first 3 years, it was really hard. And to the point where we actually hid the network, the Crowdy network. We didn't talk about it much. It was just a thing in the background. until we won the Netflix account in 2014. And that was through a sort of fortunate chain of events that led me to meet the Netflix guys. They needed a European search agency to do their search and some display, YouTube, for all their launches across Europe. And our model with our Crowdees just felt the right thing. And they bought into it because they're Netflix and they're innovative and they're different. And that, funnily enough, gives you a bit of confidence to say to the next pitch. They go, well, we don't like your Crowdie model. And we go, well, Netflix do. So, you know, if you don't want to be like Netflix, then that's up to you.
It's actually interesting. So obviously Netflix, well known for being quite a value-based organisation. What values are you regularly communicating your values internally? Are they a thing that you kind of talk about in terms of?
Yeah, we communicate them internally. We can communicate them externally. We communicate them to our Crowdie network. I mean, I think most agencies are pretty in tune with well-being and values and the people within it. I think as an expression that my ex-chairman Tim always used to use right from the day one was, there's no such thing as great agencies, just great people in agencies. And even though we've got our tech and we've got our Crowdie network, ultimately we are a sum of the people in our business. And you know, we 10% of our workforce, 20 people are building technology. What's interesting, you go, well, we're sort of a bit of a tech business, right? But even that tech is built by people. So people form, you know, the heart of our business. And you know, I'm sure that applies to most agencies, but we genuinely do care about that. We care about the values that we stand by. It's funny, we had for a few years when you're small and start up, and you know, you want to have values, but you're kind of just so busy. And we just said, oh, let's do some values. And we did these 10 values. And I mean, you can never remember 10 values. So so eventually somebody, you know, picked it up by its scuff of its neck, said, right, we've got to sort these values out. And we had a vote for what our values should be, and everybody sort of contributed. And we're not you know, we don't vote on everything, but I thought it was important that we got to the right answer. People keep telling me we should, you know, we should change them, but our values are passion. So being passionate, caring, you know, enjoying it, just feeling passionate about the work we do, not 24/7, right? Monday mornings, I don't think anybody would just, you know, most people wouldn't describe them as uber passionate, but ultimately that's what we should feel when we're doing work. Imagination, which I think is a good combination of like, you know, a good combination of like creativity and then, you know, data and being imaginative with how we do things. And then integrity, and our biggest, you know, just being really, we are, I think, painfully honest, not painfully honest, but honest to our own detriment at times. Right. Like, I'm forever like shocked that we are underpriced by other agencies, undercut for the same supposedly number of hours. Like, we have our Crowdie network, which is a much cheaper way of delivering work because we haven't got a lot of operational stuff, and that's 40% of the work we do. We have an office in Shrewsbury, which you know, is £9 a square foot there for office space, as opposed to 80 in London, and the overall cost of employment there is slightly cheaper. Yet people still tell, you know, so and we are totally honest and transparent about our fees, and so sometimes I think maybe we should change that and not have integrity as one of our as one of our values. We have an unofficial one, which is endurance. But I would
unofficial because you don't tell people in an interview process.
Yeah, like, well, yeah, because we have this Crowd coin system where like people give each other coins, and you have to have a hashtag of one of the values in order to be able to give coins to your peers. It's a brilliant system. I don't know what it's called. It's called at Bonusly. If anybody's, it's a really nice system. If anybody's, and it's a way in which, and the company pays some money every month for people to redeem these tokens, these Crowd coins against other against like Amazon vouchers, or I'm not sure what people do. Nobody ever gives me these Crowd coins. But we yeah, so and when you have to do this, you have to write the sort of hashtag passion image, but people do write hashtag endurance, for people who, and I think anybody in, I mean, this is a group of agency people, right?
Yeah.
I think we all have to show perseverance and endurance working in agencies at times, because it's a unique place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like, especially in the 12 months that we've had, it's kind of like when you're in a service organization where you are kind of delivering stuff, as you say, to clients, that people do have to sometimes or encouraged to put in the hours. How does that work with the 40% of your network that's Crowdy? Do they do overtime? Is it kind of a bit more?
Well, no, but I mean, it's all hourly rate.
Yeah.
So it's prescribed tasks, and what they tend to do is the stuff that is more easily, packaged into chunks of time, a piece of content, or a technical report, or a keyword builder, or some creative for Facebook, or some optimization tasks that we know, and we're very prescriptive about how long certain tasks should take. And in some instances, quick crowdies can do it in shorter than the allocated time, and slow crowdies can do it in longer, but maybe the slow crowdie costs more, so they're, more thorough. And then, but there's a meritocracy and there's a scoring system and all this sort of stuff. So no, it's very, very regimented in terms of the hours, and the our in-house teams do work longer hours. I think we're fairly keen for them not to work like agencies used to. I remember the days when it was, I mean, not so much when I worked in agencies, but when I was, working with agencies, and people were regularly, and it was almost like that sort of machismo and that culture of, you were, if you were seen to leave your desk before 7, what are you up to? You've not got enough work on.
Thankfully, things that I think that's changed for most agencies. I think there might be some agencies out there that are still like that. Thank God we're not working for them.
Yeah, and I think there is an exception to that, which is when pitches are on. We all have to muck in, but I tend to be a bit of a sort of leader by example. And if there's a pitch prep on a Sunday, even if I'm not involved in the pitch, I'll go to it. I thought it was interesting, actually. I don't know if I haven't read the article because I've been busy, but there was an article in Campaign yesterday about mental health and pitching, which I thought was really interesting, that agencies had to really tackle it. I haven't, like I say, I've got it sort of starred, and I'll spend some time up on the weekend, but I think there's a definite thing to consider there.
Can I ask, when we're on pitching, I'm going to move on to the core competency sort of area. Describe a project. Before
we do, Laurence, what are your values?
I thought you were going to ask me that. Yeah, so our 3 are lion-hearted, down to earth, and hungry. Now, the lion-hearted thing is an interesting one. So I'm very quickly going to give you a bit of our origin story. So Rufus Leonard is sort of Old English for Red Lion, which was the name of the pub that Neil and Darryl were working out of when they started the agency 30 years ago. It's the Red Lion opposite BBH on Kingley Street, if anyone knows, an old Samuel Smith's pub. Really nice Samuel Smith's pub, actually. But yeah, they were basically, they didn't have office space, so they were basically working out there, and they wanted to create a name that was unusual but felt like it had been around for a long time, and that was just one of the things.
There's more than one agency that's named after a boozer.
Oh, Adam and Eve, of course, I guess.
Adam and Eve, and isn't 7 Stars boozer related?
Possibly. Oh, there you go. Maybe there's a club there. Anyway, so we've got a lion theme as a result of that, right? So, and lion-hearted is the kind of courageous, bold, true to yourself kind of. So there's a bunch of stuff stacked within that. But yeah, down to earth. I mean, if you ever met Neil, kind of the most kind of straight talking, down to earth person. And I think that's one of the things, kind of, in the world of design, and even in technology, you can get a bit up your own arse at times. So to try and kind of battle that and be a bit more, try and drive simplicity. And then hungry is just kind of our desire to keep doing things differently and the innovative bit, really.
You can almost apply a lion to that as well, light-hearted and hungry like a lion, you know.
Yeah, I was told to pipe down at that suggestion. I was like, I was getting all a line across the whole piece, and someone thought I was going overboard. But yeah, it's interesting because we occasionally get them out and dust them down and go, do we change these? And in the end, it kind of like they're handy, I think, for us and it's just that thing of like we don't always stick to them, but when we're at our best, this is what we're like, just to remind ourselves.
It's important.
It is. All right, in terms of the project that shows you at your best.
Yeah, I had to think about this. I mean, I guess our biggest client is probably the best way of like showcasing what we do. So everybody will be familiar with Regis, IWG, which is the sort of parent company, which includes things like Spaces and, is the sort of British, bigger, but probably less glamorized version of WeWork. So 2,000 office space, and probably 3,000, more like 3,000 now, office space globally, operation in 120 markets. We met them about 5 years ago, and it was funny actually. Netflix was on its way out. It was always a sort of 18-month gig with Netflix as they in-house their digital media. And Netflix was on the way out, and they paid us, whatever it was, £500,000 a year or something. And Regis was on the way in, and Regis being Regis is a sort of not that glamorous brand. Everyone sort of went, lucky, you've lost Netflix, and you got Regis. Regis is now worth, several, or IWG is worth several £1 million to us a year. And the reason for that is because of what we've done for them, and they've almost reversed an in-housing trend. They did reverse an in-housing trend. They trialed lots of network agencies. They're operational in 120 markets. So they said to us in the first instance in 2015, we like the sound of your business, but you're small and you're crowd and you're not particularly trust. And we said, look, we've got this Crowdy network. We can operate in lots of different markets for you. At that time, we probably couldn't operate in that many, maybe 30. We told them 60. If I have to be careful, Ian Hallett's not listening to this, my client. And
all right, it's over 5 years ago. It's fine.
Exactly, and I think if you heard it, he's a friend now. So and we sort of did, but they gave us all these really difficult markets to crack, to do PPC in all these different markets. And it was a random place like Bolivia and I can't even remember the rest of them. It was like Belgium, but we had to have Flemish and all this. So all these random tests, and we passed the tests anyway. Wind that forward 5 years, we do all of their digital marketing in 120 markets.
Right.
We knocked people like what they call part of Dentsu. I can't remember, but a big part of Dentsu in North America. We've beaten a load of Chinese incumbent local market agencies.
Wow.
Because we have a whole APAC team within our Shrewsbury office, and then we have our Crowdies doing work on WeChat and Tencent and all the local market platforms. So, and we literally do everything for them from performance marketing through analytics or anything Google Stack related, programmatic, Facebook advertising, some creative as part of that. And I mean, what I call executional creative. And, and there's probably 50 people within any given day within the organization, so a quarter of our workforce, or maybe 20% of our workforce, who are engaged with that business. And like I say, they've thrived. Their share price has gone up several X, and it's the whole sort of premise of it is that local market execution and specialism, but all centrally managed. And not all clients are like that. We tried to pitch for Shell, and they're like, well, we need offices in every location on the planet because they act almost as the marketing department, and they go with a MediaCom. Whereas this is a very much well, it's managed from sort of combination of Luxembourg and UK, London, and somewhere else in Europe. But it just suits the way our business can operate and how we can apply a model that really suits those sorts of clients. But we do a similar thing for like VF Corporation, which is Vans, North Face, Eastpak, Timberland, or Victoria's Secret, you know, in a very different vertical.
And that was going to be, so that was going to be my next question in terms of the kind of clients you're best for. Now, I had kind of like sector size mindset. Well, so it sounds like it's sort of partly the way that they have their digital marketing set up on their side. So obviously works for Regis, doesn't necessarily work for Shell. But are there other kind of elements that you'd say you're the kind of clients that you're best for, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, look, anything international, because we've got that, like, you know, we pitch well in the UK or domestic US, but we don't have anywhere near the success when we're pitching for an international client, because it's just so obvious how our model can work for somebody who needs to get into 30 markets, but maybe only wants to spend a relatively small amount in those markets. So big international, I mean, it's got to be big, reasonably big budget, because you know, there's the whole machine you've got to get up and running. But it's a lot less than if you were to go to a network where they'd probably just ignore it and try and, you know, try and plug it. So yeah, so I'd say, you know, international clients are our sweet spot. We'd still do a lot of work with domestic businesses, particularly in the States, actually. I'd say probably over half of our business in the UK is international. In the US, they're less worried about international because the US is such a huge market. And in terms of verticals, B2B is a big one for us. We just started working with the likes of Zendesk. We work with Intuit. Again, they want kind of globally stuff. We're doing lots of stuff in Mexico for Intuit and doing a brilliant job. To the point where we're sort of almost thinking about, do we transition, do we trial having a Crowdy as more of a permanent fixture there with a slightly different remuneration model than just hourly rates, because we may need like a sort of client service type point of contact there. But lot of e-commerce, so Vans, North Pay, you know, the VF Corporation, Victoria's Secret, a lot more sort of boutique type stuff, streaming and sub businesses, so Amazon Prime, although I'm probably not allowed to say this and I'll get, you know, hang out to dry. Nobody on this call tell Amazon Prime that I told you I work with them.
I'll distract everyone with a new question, shall I? Go on, sorry.
Audible, which is also part of Amazon, and don't tell anybody about that either.
So I was going to, actually, one of the things I was going to ask is like how you grew that Regis account, but I think the answer has got to be, I was really struck by on your site, you don't talk about work, where in the navigation where people, other agencies have work, you have results, which I think is a really interesting sort of like just a natural, the better way of thinking about it. It's like, do people care about our creative work? Actually, they care about the results that creative work delivers. I'm assuming kind of like, you know, the Regis, obviously you delivered right on Regis and kept going with it on that one. Yeah,
and I think like we've always been a performance focused business, right? We were a search agency in 2011 and that was 60% of digital media. So why wouldn't you be? And yeah, I remember back then thinking, we'll just do search forever. And then you go, shit, there's a lot of other stuff. There's social, there's programmatic, there's how it all fits together from an analytics perspective. There's, you know, we're starting to think much more about CRO. But I think at our heart, while I like to think of myself as quite a creative human being, the thing I find with creative is the subjectivity of it. Whereas, you know, what I like to tie anything we do, and even if that is creative, back to some sort of KPI performance metric. And you know, even when we're doing things like in-housing now, so we have an in-housing team that's just, you know, recently started up, and we're starting to get some traction there. Even then, it's got to be kind of tied back, and they also do consultancy, but it's all got to be tied back to business results. Like, are we making a positive impact on our client's business? And I think what's become pretty like beneficial for us as a business is I feel like performance marketing now is kind of often the lifeblood of a lot of businesses. You have, and you know, we've been on this journey in the last 10 years. So when we first started out, I mean, CMOs wouldn't talk to us, right? Search is an acquisition channel. Go and talk to some people over there, through, so vaguely they started, CMOs started to get it. Then, vaguely some other people. Nowadays, we're being asked to talk to CEOs, and CEOs are coming to our pitches because they're like, 30% of my success or failure will be dependent on these channels and these ways of engaging customers.
And that's just accelerated even more in the last 12 months, right? It's kind of like, it's that the whole, it's now the rents that you'd normally pay for your footfall on the high street, right?
Yeah, it's that's your real estate, right? It's your website, right? And are you keeping up with your website? I remember being at Google years ago, and Matt Britton saying he went to, he likened, bad checkout, bad checkout experience, or that page is down, or that it's like, somebody being in a store and bits of chewing gum being on the floor, or the way things are displayed just being all skew-whiff, or you can't get in the change room because it's locked, right? That is, that's the new world we live in, and that you guys control, particularly on the on the web dev side and on more of the CRO side.
I'm going to go to the most difficult question of this whole session. What's your agency? If your agency had a Bumble profile, what would it say?
So I'm not the funniest guy in my agency by a long way. So I sent this to a great gang of people in the business and said, right, come up with it. Somebody came up with young agile business seeks older partners with loads of cash. But I thought that would sort of suggest that we're trying to be bought by a conglomerate, which we definitely don't. But so I just went, and my one was just charming, humble, kind at heart, but don't let any of that hide our naked ambition.
Nice.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. When I was for a very short time on some dating apps, I was appalling at all this stuff.
Actually, but talking about ambition, that's a nice segue into the final section, which we'll do in the last 5 minutes. The future. So the ambition. What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Yeah, pretty clear, really. We did this private equity deal with LDC, which is the Lloyds Bank part of. The private equity part of Lloyds Bank. That was in November 19, so we're just about 18 months into that. There was always an ambition to sort of grow organically, and that will come through organic growth in the UK, great. Australia, which is really starting to pick up for us. US is a really big focus for us. It's such a big market, and the numbers, like everyone used to say this to me, and I was like, really? I'm not seeing it, but you almost add a zero to budgets over there, and we're now but you have to. There's a really long lead up to get there. That's what they don't tell you. They go add a zero and it's all fine. Then you realise you get there and your clients are smaller than they are here, and you're starting from the very bottom, and you've got to work your way up. But we've got to a sort of point where big 20 million, 30 million, 50 million budgets are now within our grasp, and media budgets, not fees, but it'd be nice if there were fees.
Yeah.
That's like right. I think there probably are agencies with 50 million fees, but they're probably quite rare. So US big focus. We were due to launch LA as well as New York just pre-pandemic. That's sort of just still on ice and probably will happen later this year. So that's the sort of organic ambition. And then, we've got a plan to bring other businesses into the fold. We haven't done it yet. Pandemic sort of sorted that. We were close, and then everything gets thrown up in the air. And we've just been given a shot in the arm by our private equity partners who've said, right, come on. We're a shining light in their portfolio. We want to double down on investment. So we're in market really to bring on like-minded businesses, like-minded complementary businesses to join us on the journey. And really what I'm trying to do, and I was talking to you off camera about this week has been about trying to create deal structures that really incentivize people to continue to be entrepreneurs, and that isn't as easy as it sounds. So, but that'll be a big part of what we do, I think, in the next next 18 months.
I've got a few more questions to ask, but I'm aware that we're getting towards the end. I've got a question that's broader about. Obviously, this is the Alliance of Independent Agencies session, and your thoughts on kind of the indie agency world generally. I mean, I'm sort of. I mean, part of the reason why I've kind of thrown my lot into the Alliance and really feel strongly about it is that I think that there's been a sea change in the clients being open to working with indie agencies, and I was talking to someone earlier this morning about it, and I kind of thought it's partly because of agencies like yours who are still independent and have no plans to change that, and are really a force to reckon with in their area of expertise and their specialism. It's kind of giving, I guess, the indie world a good name, and kind of like, yes, as you've got more and more of these kind of companies that don't have an exit plan to sell to a network, it creates more and more kind of a good vibe about the indie world generally. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, or.
I think so. Yeah, look, I'm so proud that we are still an indie, and I'm proud of this community. I think there's so much more innovation and agility, and like just I think the networks got to a point where they got so bloated that they just couldn't do anything, and ultimately I think we are all thinking about things differently. The way we get invested, there's a lot of money, particularly in the digital space. There's a lot of money out there to help growth of businesses, so I think people should maximize that. I think you're right, clients are now very receptive to different ways of doing it. At the bigger end, they're still quite wedded to the networks or the new networks, the S4Cs. Jellyfish is a real big force to be reckoned with now. There's a number of others. There's Dept, there's you and Mr. Joe. So there's these new sort of networky feeling businesses. There's Stagwell have done a very good job. So and they're sort of like almost the new model of network agencies that perhaps will get first dibs on the very big stuff. But I'm very much one for building relationships, building this alliance and ensuring that, we can pass things between each other, refer people to one another. Our client base is super loyal to us because we do a great job. And I think most indies do. And if they don't,
they don't last long.
You don't last long. Exactly. The one thing I would say though is we should all be mindful that the networks are getting their act together.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't think there's no resting on laurels. I think, but yeah, definitely an opportunity. Now, so we're a bit over. I've got a ton of other questions. Luke, we'll keep talking because I definitely want to kind of see what we can do together, partnering going forward. It's been really, really great to have you for this session. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and with everyone else. I've got one final question, of course, which is who do you want to interview in the chain next?
So I thought long and hard about this, and I'd like to interview Dino Myers-Lamperty. I've known Dino for about 20 years, and I think I was he also used to work about 30 yards behind me, and I've just been fascinated by his going out on his own, having spent so much time in a variety of agencies, and I'm really interested in what the barber shop is all about. So, and Dino's just a great character within our industry, isn't he? So I called him about 20 minutes ago. I don't know where he was. He was out, it was windy. And I said, Dino, I've selected you for the Alliance of Independent. So in the next couple of weeks, I will be in Laurence's seat, and Dino will be in mine, and we'll talk a little bit about the barber shop.
That will be awesome. Looking forward to that. Clive, do you have any final comments?
No, all I can say is thank you, Luke. Thank you, Laurence. It's been fascinating to eavesdrop on your conversation, and I hope that the blind date turns into some kind of.
I hope so too.
Some kind of longer-lasting relationship, and we look forward to Luke talking to Dino next month. So we're trying to do these things. This has been the first, so there are no hard and fast, but we're trying to do this on the second Thursday of every month. So that would take us to the 13th, but that's subject to Luke's diary and Dino's diary. But hopefully 13th of May at 5 o'clock, you'll see the next link in the chain. So thank you all very much indeed for attending. I hope it's been good, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.